Hey everyone, it's Andre Luck here to share my video for this week. So the past few weeks, I've talked a lot about this transformation that needs to happen in sports, specific as it relates to B2B sales. And I laid out 5 problems and solutions that go with those problems that sports teams can use to help improve their efforts on B2B sales. Most of the leaders I talk to, that's a main focus, that's a big point of emphasis because either they're looking to grow their revenues, they're building out new premium spaces. Many teams and venues are starting to build out around their venues and provide these more premium experiences because they know that's a big need and revenue gain. But you also need to have the people that can then go sell that and find people once the initial interest and demand, goes down. Have people that know how to have conversations and go out and be proactive to go find new business opportunities. So today, I'm going to touch on one of those problems, which is that sales teams and sales leaders don't know how to have real business conversations. And even myself, spending 17 years in the industry, I've learned more in these 4 or 5 months of being an entrepreneur about how business people think and work than my entire time working in sports. And that's not necessarily a knock on sports salespeople because we do a really good job of working on the fan, hitting on the emotion, you know, creating experiences that the fan and families and super fans love, and that's a big part of what drives the business. If you only focused on business sales and not the consumer, there's not enough people out there. There's not enough demand from the business market to fill up the seats and to drive the demand that you want. So you need to have a good strategy towards both. You need to attack your consumers well, and a separate conversation could talk about what that looks like. But in conjunction with that, need to have a strategy around businesses, and that's continuing to see the biggest gap. There continually is the biggest gap that I see as I talk to sports leaders, and they recognize it too. They know that that's a need. They know that maybe 10, 20% of their team actually can do it well. Even then, they could be elevated in their skill set and get more training. But they just continue to, this is how we've always done it. And it's such a lift or an overhaul for some people that you really almost have to have someone brand new come in or be open to a lot of change in how you do processes, and then knowing that the staff, there's probably going to be some pushback, but being okay with that because you see on the other side of this, you see the vision that it's going to be better sales environment, sales culture for you all, because you can tap into some of those bigger companies within your market or national companies that maybe want to do business with you and just have a higher customer value for revenue per each customer because you're selling higher dollar amounts. You're not leaving your best seats open and then hoping that you sell those on a game by game basis. You're not building out these new premium spots that only are 50% full. Like you want those fully full, and there's going to be, I talked to a team recently where they said their club, it's about 50% high net worth individuals, 50% businesses. So those high net worth individuals are probably fans, and it's a baseball team. So they're probably people that have a lot of money that are baseball fans, and I think we do a pretty good job with that in sports. But what about that other 50%? Maybe those people come inbound to us, but if not, we have to be able to go out and get them and have conversations with business people around their challenges, the outcomes they're trying to achieve, ROI. And those are just conversations that we were never really taught and never really had coming up through sports. And I'll share kind of my story of early on in my career and why I think this is a big opportunity even 15 years later for a lot of salespeople. So that's one part of it. We're very consumer focused. We focus a lot on products, features, benefits, and those are the things that really move the needle with the consumer, not as much with the business. Those are nice to have. Those are nice value adds on top if you've already got someone on board from a business perspective, but they can't go to their CFO and say that, we get batting practice passes. That's why I want to spend $30,000 on tickets. Like there has to be a return on their investment that integrates with their high level business problems. And those are just conversations that you don't have. The other reason why sports salespeople never really get to the point where they're having high level business conversations is because there's just so much turnover. You're getting people maybe a year out of college that spend 2 to 3 years in the role, And then there's a few that continue to ascend within sports, and most of those try and go the leadership route, which I'll touch on here in a second. But you're getting so much turnover that you never get that consistency where you could build on someone's skill set, where maybe you do start them out on B2C consumer, taking more low dollar transactional sales, and then eventually growing them to be high level business salespeople. Because you're getting so much turnover, whether it's the hours that people work in sports, or there's more money that could be made outside of sports, or this was nice, but they want to try and do something else, that's a big problem. So part of it also goes back to your recruiting and the type of people you're bringing on, because in this new world of sports sales and B2B sports sales, you're going to need to teach people early in their career how to have business conversations. So whether it's the personalities that you hire and their willingness to get out of their comfort zone and have difficult high level conversations, that's a new skill set you need to look for. It can't just be someone who's high energy that gets people excited. A lot of people you could do that through video, you could do that through content, and people can buy on their own. But you probably want someone that's convincing, that can ask difficult questions, that can speak confidently to business people and feel comfortable in a room with people that maybe have higher levels of experience in them. Like, that's a new way to look at how you're recruiting, because if you're going to teach this person how to sell businesses, do they have the chops to have that conversation? The other thing we see is just a lack of B2B training. So you don't get people to the tenure that you want to get them to, but then also the training, because a lot of the managers, they never really learned how to sell businesses either. So you're just continuing to extend the problem. And like I said, most people, as they get up in their career, and there's opportunities that are great within sports to advance very quickly. That was what was attractive to me. Is my first job that I got into, I looked up, and most of the managers and directors were in their early 30s. They had been in their careers, 7 to 10 years. I looked at it, I was like, okay, very quickly I can move up and become a manager, director, vice president. Where in most companies outside of sports, you're just starting to get to a high level sales position at that tenure, and eventually maybe you do start managing, but they really hone in on selling. And there are some sports teams I think do a really good job of this. Um, but for me, I was like, oh, I can quickly move up the leadership path. And we are so quick to preach leadership and the growth path. And that's something that's a big selling point for us, that I really wanted to push pause on that when I got into the manager director role. It's like, yeah, those will always be there, but we need to drive revenue. We need salespeople that know how to actually sell. So it's not my job to get them up the pipeline as quickly as possible, or up the ladder as quickly as possible into leadership. I need to teach them how to sell. And some people didn't want that. They look at other teams and they're like, all right, I could go there and get in their manager training program and be a manager in XYZ years. But that's not the end goal for a team. For an organization, you want a strong group of sellers that can drive revenue. So if that means paying them more to stay in a sales role and really teaching them and letting them grow and develop, like that is something you need to look at. It's not how quickly you get a manager title. It's how do we drive an effective and efficient revenue business and revenue sales team. And so not pushing people into management will help with that. So then you have stronger sellers that when they do get into management, they could train better. So, and you can do more consistent training, bringing in outside trainers, using trainers that maybe are outside of sports, although they can't as articulate as much maybe on the B2C side. They can talk through, here's how business people make decisions. So that's something that, really, when you look at the training piece, that's something I'm really championing for others who are doing this as well. Like, that's a big focus, is pushing teams to invest more in their development on the sales team, the training, and investing more there and putting more resources towards it. So whether it's bringing in someone outside or doing it more consistently and creating a culture and environment of sales and training, that's a big part of it as well. We also get a lot of data on the consumer, because most of the people, even if a business person buys tickets, they use their personal email address or their personal information. That's the email address is where you track most of your buyers through the funnel and see where they're spending. So when you make smart decisions based on data and how many times people are coming out to games, it's off the consumer at the consumer level. you have to then do some work to find out who that person is from a business perspective. And there's more tools out there that can start to identify those people, but really it's just one-to-one, hand-to-hand combat. And that goes back to the training and the development that you're doing with your sales team to make sure that they know how to take a consumer buyer and turn that into a business opportunity. So the solution, as I said, is there needs to be a new way of training salespeople. And for us, as we go through our training program, we really start at a foundational level of why businesses would purchase tickets. And I've said before, it's really for prospective clients, current clients, and employees. There's other use cases, but making sure people fully understand what those different use cases are and putting themselves in the mind of a business person first is going to help them do that. And then understanding the different buyer personas. So typically you're working with a CEO or a president. Those are usually at smaller to mid-sized companies, a CMO, a CRO, one thing, or someone in marketing or sales. And one thing that's really changing now is the CFO is so much more involved. I touched on that person earlier. The CFO wasn't as involved in the past. So not only do you need to convince the business person that you're working with who's looking to drive revenue through this, you need to prop them up and put them in a position where they can go to their CFO and have a conversation with that person about justifying that expense. And a lot of times you're not going to be in that conversation. You could try and work your way into there or bring the CFO into the fold, into the mix. And that's probably something you should do early on in the process so you can address their concerns or identify what that is. But if you know what the high level business objectives are and what their goals are, then you can talk about how you can integrate into their program and systems already. A lot of companies I've noticed see us as kind of like a one-off, either like a test case or this one-off thing we want to do for fun, like an outing. And so many sports sellers get excited when they hear people want to do an outing. And that's okay. Like, obviously, we'll take the group outing, and groups is starting to be a bigger part of a sports team's business. But I want to talk about the overall business goals and metrics and what are the priorities. Because if I could understand that, I can open up so many more opportunities than just an employee outing to keep your employees happy, or to do something for employee engagement. I'll take it again, but I want to integrate that into a bigger program because if I know what you're trying to do from a marketing perspective or your growth targets for this year, I could build out a plan and a program that maybe includes sponsorship opportunities where you can get marketing assets that grow your brand within the community or with the fans that come out to the games. I could talk about how season tickets, you can use those on a regular basis to get one-to-one time with your prospects, to close deals, to thank some of your high net worth clients, to continue to do business with you. Or a lot of companies and organizations struggle getting someone past that first year of purchasing with them or getting them to renew and purchase again. This could be a good asset, and that's a lot of places that sports teams play within a business's sales programs or structure. We typically deal with people that are using this to close deals or to thank some of their highest customers. So if you see, all right, we're getting a high drop off with our first year customers, this could be a good use case. And that's a different conversation than, you should buy tickets to bring people out to games or buy tickets to grow your business. We're talking actual challenges that you're facing. The industry standard of retention for your industry is 70%, you're at 60%. How can we close the gap? And like, what does that look like? And let's build out a program with tickets, with suites for a few games, with some marketing assets. And then let's set metrics and KPIs to measure that at the end of the year to make sure that we achieve success. And that's the thing too, of like having that metric and understanding of like what success looks like. 95% of the sports sellers out there that I've talked to, and part of this is shame on me, I wasn't at the point where I was coaching that either. So no, not, but they don't have that. And some prospects I've even pushed to identify one. They're like, oh no, it's fine. Like, we want to do it. I'm like, no, you're going to have to justify this at some point. And I want to make sure that we're both set up for success so that one, you can, look good and make sure that you achieve the goals and outcomes your business is looking for. But two, we can keep this relationship going. So when you ask to do this or grow this in future years, we've already shown success with this. There's a metric that aligns with the business objectives. Like that's a much different conversation than most sports salespeople are having right now. So understanding that, understanding how to talk to an entire buying committee, because it's not just one person anymore that's involved in the decision. There's typically 7 to 10 people that can opine on a decision, and someone who you think may be pretty low level could kill the deal because they have a lot of influence. It could be a sales person or a top salesperson. It's like, I don't think we should get tickets because I don't think it's going to help us close any deals. Like, you're not even involved in those conversations. So you want to get all those objections out. And those are things that in that initial training that we do, really coach and teach salespeople on how to have those conversations. So where I'll wrap up for this conversation and the solution to the problem of sales teams and sales leaders not really knowing how to have business conversations. I posted this on LinkedIn a few weeks back about my first business sale. And it was my first business appointment. It was 2008. I was in inside sales. And as I look back, at the end of the day, I closed the sale, which was great. But there were so many things I did wrong. I didn't ask questions about how they were going to use the tickets. I didn't ask why they wanted 4 tickets. They bought 4 club seats from me. Um, who else in his network that he knew that he could introduce me to that could have opened up other opportunities? What business objective is this going to achieve for him? I made a call and he answered. What I didn't know is he happened to be an old season ticket holder, so he was already interested before I even called. So I thought I did something well, and I did by just making calls and working hard as a diligent employee. But from a business perspective, like, he was already interested, so I didn't really do anything to move the needle. I just invited him out, and he purchased his ticket. So I don't know that we've evolved too much from that in 15 years. And that's what something I'm really pushing and championing for, is the way we've always sold, and asking basic business questions aren't going to cut it in a world where companies are looking to be more efficient. They're looking to more justify their spends. They're coming with more information already. They trust their peers and their network more than a salesperson. And all of that changes the dynamic on how we need to sell, and we need to adjust to that, show relevance, provide value, know how to cut through the noise of trying to get to a decision maker. And those are things that we teach in that initial training and build off that from the get-go. But that's the first reset. For the challenge and the problem that sports sellers and sports leaders don't know how to have business conversations, here's a quick way in a couple weeks to really reset that and reframe that, and then leave that up to the leaders to then reinforce it, and for us to come in and continue to work with them to make sure that those habits are being reinforced. So I'll be back with another problem solution for next week, but hope you guys enjoyed the video for this week.